I would like to call to order the 229th meeting of the Equal Employment Practices Commission. Okay, the first thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. I have a vote on the meeting minutes of March 14th, 2019.
I approved the minutes of March 19th.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
The minutes have been approved. Okay, we're up to audit update.
Okay, so as you guys know, we have a combination of audits. We have about 48 audits ongoing. They're a combination of community boards, community colleges, the Economic and the Housing Development Corporation, and a few other mayoral agencies. However, the quickest audits that we get through, of course, are community boards, so we have a few of them today. No, actually,
No, we don't.
no. These that you're gonna be voting on are agencies that went through compliance, that completed compliance. So the audits are ongoing, this is compliance stuff. Okay, do you wanna talk about the status of the community boards? I know that we've scheduled phone calls for a few of them.
Yes, so, I believe we're doing, I wanna say 18, the Brooklyn Community Boards, there's 18 of them. We are in the process of drafting the preliminary determination letters and we're scheduling the calls. I believe we've had 2 calls and we are in the process of scheduling another 12. So as soon as those calls are completed, the preliminary determination letters are gonna be going out shortly thereafter. And, we've had a couple of calls on 2 other agencies and the preliminary determination letters will be going out shortly thereafter. So that's, I think, a third of the agencies that are being currently audited will have preliminary determination letters out, I think, prior to the next meeting.
That's wonderful.
Right.
I have a question, because part of what you're doing in the sexual harassment audit is reviewing complaints. Have you found a large number of sexual harassment complaints in what you're auditing, or none, or, I'm just curious as to whether or not, what the complaint ratio is, if any.
Well, I don't think we've been finding that many complaints.
Well, we've been doing, a lot of the audits that we've been focusing on right now have been the community
The
boards.
smaller agencies.
And so they go through their borough presidents, so they don't really have complaints to report of. The couple of agencies that we have done that are, I think mayoral agencies, they really haven't had any complaints, or minimal complaints from what I can recall. But again, we're still kind of going through the audit process with the agencies and.
We'll
I'm
have-
trying to understand, I guess I'm trying to understand, among other things, and my prejudice comes from what's happening out in the world, or what I can see, the media reporting as to what's happening, and that is not a terribly good understanding of what sexual harassment itself is, and then whether or not the complaint process or procedure within the agencies and within the community boards is understood, whether people still feel intimidating in bringing forth a complaint. So I'm just wondering whether or not all of the information that's been out there, whether we now, and we never tracked it before, so this becomes our base, but whether there are more sexual harassment complaints, or just people don't understand it and bring it forward.
We're looking at the practices and the procedures and whether or not the policies are being distributed and whether or not there's a mechanism to file complaints. I think what would better answer your question is when we get the aggregate complaint information that we requested from
DCAS.
DCAS. That will tell us whether or not the complaints have increased or decreased over a period of time.
Okay.
So, maybe we should look into, I think last time we discussed this. Now that they've agreed to give us the information, we can probably go back and look over, ask them if we can have information for maybe
A year
the
ago,
past.
or the last 2 years.
Yeah, I think maybe
Will you determine it?
Yeah.
I trust your judgment
3
on
to
this.
5 years.
I trust your judgment, I trust your judgment on this. I
Right.
just, what I'm trying to, bless you, Arva. What I'm trying to understand is whether the manner in which the city council attacked this social behavior problem has reaped any benefits. Whether there has been a change in behavior or at least, and both as to women who, or others who, men who feel that they have been harassed sexually have been able to come forward with the process, or whether it has done nothing to, whether it has had any benefit at all. So I'm just curious as to how effective it's been.
I keep in mind that our audit period is before the passing of the bill.
But what you're, oh, that's right, so.
Oh,
Right, it's,
yeah.
the audit is retrospective,
Right.
so. I'm trying to think of a way, the only way I can think that we can measure progress is to get the complaint information and look
Okay.
at whether or not there's
Been an increase.
spikes. And then also maybe compare it to some of the answers that we received in the audit and look at whether or not there are practices that were implemented recently because of the legislation, and then look at the spike.
Yeah, you
Or-
have to have
right.
a baseline
Yeah.
for, because even legislation aside, like every agency has its own procedures, protocols and personnel who would lend itself to things changing in different ways. And so I don't know if we could adequately or confidently say that the legislation was like indicative of anything, right? Unless you see stuff happening across the board, across agencies, but individual agencies are individual agencies. And so I'd be reluctant to cast the legislation as like the thing that sort of propels anything in one way or the other.
Right, I think the only way that we could look at it is if we look at the changes that have been implemented since,
Oh,
or maybe because of the legislation.
Yes.
But then we would have to look at complaints over a length of time to compare
oh.
You'd also
before
have to
and after.
You'd also have to have a question that actually asks agencies, as a result of the legislation, did you change any policies, procedures, or personnel? Did you add somebody, whatever that thing is, training, that would then say that they are directly responding to the legislation. Otherwise, it's just like, it's
Guesswork.
circumstantial, yeah, it's just not.
It's guesswork.
Right.
Right.
It's data used to support a supposition.
Right.
Right, so, I mean, we can continue to.
Anyway, I
Think
guess,
about ways.
it may well be that you need to, that after doing these sexual harassment audits, we may find we have to return to it 4 years from now and do it again to see whether there in fact is going to change.
I know a part of the legislation is that agencies should do a climate survey. I'm not sure whether or not, I think the climate surveys are confidential, but perhaps we can look at those. I'm not sure whether or not I know each agency should be doing a climate survey. And we may be able to ask agencies somewhere down the line what changes have been made as a result of the climate survey.
But that's looking forward.
Yeah.
That's not part of this audit. Okay,
Okay.
I think we're up to compliance update.
So on the agenda is a resolution for one final determination, that was a Richmond County Public Administrator. That was a follow-up
Final.
audit that we initiated in 2018, but it got delayed because there was a change in administration, so we gave them an extended period of time to respond. I'm happy to report that they did respond, and their new administration seems to be taking the audit very seriously. They are going into compliance this month, and they only have 5 corrective actions, which is not a significant amount considering it was the EPA audit, which is the more extensive employment practices audit. There's also 3 compliance resolutions, and those are also from the 2018 audit plan. And they're on the agenda for today for the borough president's offices of the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Manhattan. And as of now, we only have 5 agencies in compliance from the 2018 audit plan. 2 of those agencies will be done in 2 weeks at the end of April. I'm very confident in saying that. And then the other 3 were the follow-up audits, and one agency has 3, corrective actions, one has 5, and then the third unfortunately has 13, so we're gonna have to work with them a little bit. So, and
So the commission can, vote on the items that are in front of you.
Okay,
Yes.
I move that resolution 2018 AP/229-945, resolution 2018 AP/229-011, resolution 2018 AP/229-012, and resolution 2018 AP/229-10010 be approved.
I second.
Second?
All in favor?
So we're keeping good momentum. Just, I'd like to hope that all agencies will be
We'll have to sign
in the
that.
compliance monitoring section of the audit by June. Cause we usually try to do it before then, so that they'll have a good 6 months, but then we encourage them to complete their compliance monitoring before the 6 months. So
You continue to
We're
make the
late.
numbers.
we're really trying here.
yeah, I can say that the analysts, are really plugging away.
Oh, great.
I have to give them a lot
Yeah.
of props. I see them, they're constantly, on the phone with the agencies and churning out the PDs and, doing a really thorough and good job, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can I just say we have great analysts now?
Oh, that's
Yeah,
wonderful.
they're really good writers and,
Yes.
yeah.
Wonderful.
Congratulations.
Our most
It's only
recent
taken
analyst,
you a short time.
I know. Our most recent analyst is like so great. I mean, they all are like, they're blowing me away now.
Oh, wonderful.
Anyway,
That's
but-
great to hear.
Yes. So, okay, so let's talk about, do you wanna, Commissioner Reese and Commissioner Cabrera were at the budget hearings, for the council, is there anything you wanna say
Oh, yeah.
about the testimony?
I think they were pretty thorough, and so are we. I thought that, the way we answered was really great. I could tell in the way they reacted that, they think that we're doing our job.
We were among friends. Whether the friends give us the money we want, which is
That's
really
something
just a
else,
drop
yeah.
in a bucket.
Right.
I mean, when you really look at $500,000 out of, what is it, 83 billion? It doesn't really add up. I mean, if you do the math, it's not a lot of money.
83 million?
No, 83 billion.
Really? That's what I thought I heard.
Yes, that's what you heard, that's the city's budget these days. So, but we were with friends. Helen Rosenthal came in to the hearing and was there, and clearly is a supporter and a promoter. Whether she fully understands what we do is another question, but that's not the issue right now. So, as to the article, Arvin, you had a comment about it, I got a phone call at home, and I called Sharice and said, it's the press, and this particular newspaper is anti the mayor, I'm not sure I would have called.
Yeah, I think let's go back to that council meeting and.
Sure.
Yes,
But it was a result of that council meeting.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, we can-
The reason he called was he was there.
we can.
Okay, so, we're being audited by the comptroller, as you guys know. I don't think and I have the sums in the morning, guys, as you know. And I don't think that there's any great movement with that, but you can update the commission,
Sure.
Judith.
So the auditors from the controller's office came to do what they call a walkthrough and had an interview with one of our audit managers. And they've requested all types of documentation on our procedures during the audit period. And so what we're talking about, they're concerned whether the EPC is meeting its mandate of auditing every agency once every 4 years. And so they're looking at the quadrennial cycle. So the quadrennial cycle at issue is from 2014 to 2017. during that time, we did the discrimination complaint investigation audit and the employment practices audit. It doesn't go into the sexual harassment prevention and procedures audit. So, what we've provided to them shows how much we've updated. It shows us I provided them all of our instructional memos, the procedures we have in place, the controls we have in place, how we are structurally. And it was interesting because it seemed, after a while, it seemed that they were more interested not in exactly how the audits are done, but whether we have gotten to every agency. And so it's wonderful to be able to say, yes, we have. The fact is that the way audits run, it is a rolling period, because as you see, the end of one year doesn't mean that's the end of the audits that occurred in that year. They may flow into the next year. However, it's excellent. I think that we're doing an excellent job, and I think they can see that. They see how well, how everything is computerized. They see that. They also use the teammate system. Anyway, and so I could see that as auditors, they can see that they're coming here to do their interview while we have our interviews as questionnaires online. And so we let them know about that, which is more effective. And so we have very effective, efficient mechanisms to do the work we do. So we've shown them that. Now it's up to them to look at the materials, and then they say they may wanna come back and interview someone else. But I think it's all good. All we have is
Well,
a good
their
rule.
mission is to make sure that we have met our charter. We have done that, the last time round with the controller's audit. As I recall, we had failed to audit both the mayor's office and the city council. That no
Right.
longer is true.
Right,
And that was a finding on their part
Mhm.
at that point,
right.
that that was something we needed to do. So we have done that,
Mm.
and so I don't.
And we're on the second round of both those
Yes.
agencies now.
Something that I should point out is, we have 59 of the agencies under our jurisdiction, I guess, our community boards. We don't audit them every 4 years because it would be excessive for the community board. So they may find that our number may not be 141. We explain that we audit the borough president's office. The borough presidents are the community boards, the borough presidents would appoint the chairperson for the community boards. And so, once the borough president is in compliance and we audit the community board to see whether or not they comply with the borough president's policies, we come back in about 5 or 6 years, because it really doesn't, it's a waste of our resources or time to come back in 4 years for an agency of 3 people.
Wow.
So, once we've established compliance, you know,
And the
we don't-
community boards themselves are volunteer groups. The only compensation goes to the management group, which is those
the
3 people.
director, the chairperson, I think it's a district manager, chairperson, and then they usually have some sort
A
of
secretary of
clerical.
some
The,
sort.
Right.
the chairperson is not here.
Right, okay.
Right.
So it's, the office is comprised of, and the chairperson is per diem or something?
I'm not certain about
The
that.
office is comprised of the district manager and usually some sort, maybe
Clerical.
One
one or
or two.
2 clerical.
Community
Is it,
coordinators.
and I don't wanna cut anybody out, but given that how tiny actually these boards are, have you ever found that there's actually issues with these boards, number one? And 2, if there really is not, like relatively speaking across the years, does it make sense to actually sort of say, maybe we don't need to actually audit these boards? And I'm not advocating for that, I'm just putting that as a question where it's like, maybe we have a standard of like, if there's less than 3 employees or something like
A
that.
de minimis.
Yeah,
But we
and if
do,
they're all managerial, maybe, I don't know.
our audit accounts for that, so what we do is, we have an abbreviated audit of about 10 standards. It's
7.
Okay, I I think we collapsed them recently.
Mhm.
It's about 7 standards, and they mostly have to do with distributing the borough president's EEO policy, forming a relationship with the borough president's EEO officer, making sure the community board employees know that if they have a complaint, that they can file it with the borough president's EEO officer. So they're abbreviated and they really reinforce the relationship between the community board and the borough president's office. So that when we audit the borough president's office, we're looking at also the community boards as an extension of that
Yeah.
audit. So we don't wanna get to a point where we're not going to audit the
Yeah.
community board because there's city employees there and they have rights and
That's true.
rights
Or
and
can you
responsibilities.
flip it, and as you do the borough president's office, amalgamate those community boards into that audit?
We try to, in a sense, audit them around the same time, but sometimes, like for Brooklyn, there's
There's too many.
18 community boards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Wow.
really good, yeah.
So it really has to be sort of a separate one, and because they're separate entities,
Yeah.
we have to give them a preliminary determination and
Okay.
have them each go through,
Mm.
you know, whether or not, I think the first thing is we have the community board chairperson issue a statement saying, you know, we follow the borough president's policy or whatever. Then issue the policies, then issue the complaint, procedures, or at least let them know that the borough president has complaint procedures that they can file a complaint or they, the community board follows. And then I think another one has to do with accessibility. So it's really looking at that entity and reinforcing a relationship, but also making sure that those employees are
Yeah.
protected.
That's right.
So
So
we
it's
have
not
to do
really,
it
it's not
separately.
really 2 employees, it's 2 times 18, so it's really 30.
Right,
That's,
that would
I
be,
know, I'm just trying to think, cause if
Yeah,
you're,
yeah.
yeah, so
So-
you're really looking at a larger
right,
entity.
so we did consider that, and that's how we came up with that that abbreviated
Yeah.
format.
Yeah.
Is that the same as the desk audit that you used to do?
Yes,
Yes, it is.
so we don't call it a desk audit anymore because all audits are pretty much
Desk
desk
audit.
audits now,
Yeah.
because we don't go to the agency, but it's kinda like a desk audit. But, we have one for smaller city agencies too, for mayoral agencies or bigger agencies that are smaller than the typical agency, which are under 150 employees, we have an abbreviated audit for that too. So. we
But
can
so
review-
thank you for the advice that perhaps the controller will note that we haven't done all 141, but it sounds like we have a fairly decent reason why.
Right.
Right,
And
we
it
always
is
know what they
unlike-
may come up with, but we've explained what our processes are and why we do certain things,
Okay.
so that they can have some background.
I'd be surprised if something happens from the controller having, as I say, the last time round and their own records would show they had said to us what we needed to do and we followed through, so.
I am really interested to hear what they have to say,
Okay.
because they do audits and, you know, we may think that we're great, but we may be overlooking something, it's true, you never know.
We're great.
Yep.
So, okay, and an update on the correspondence to DCAS. I shared the letter with you where they agreed to provide the information that we requested, so
We shall see.
I'll keep you posted
Yes.
on that. On a side note, I do want to bring up some questions that I answered for OMB regarding why,
We need additional
having
monies.
this additional money and staff is so important. I gave them sort of a rudimentary strategy that we plan to use, which, if you wanna look at it, contains about 11 steps, but it has to do with collecting information about underutilization from the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics, and then doing the analysis and creating a framework and all of the intricate work that goes into actually coming up with a report about underutilization in the city. It's not as simple as, and I think we discussed this
We
during the hearing.
discussed it as part of the hearing, so we're
Right.
gonna go back to, one of the things at the hearing is we discussed needing a labor economist. There was no way that we would have the information at hand as to whether or not a particular title existed in the city workforce before we looked at whether the city of New York, whether there was anybody out there you could hire and how many of those people were out there before you decided we were underutilizing them. If they weren't available,
Well, the importance of having that type of position is that we have non-mayoral agencies under our jurisdiction, which we may not receive information from the mayor's office of data analytics for. So for those agencies, we're gonna have to look at the labor market data and pretty much either request that they do their own utilization analysis or do a utilization analysis. And even if they're giving us their own, we have to check the data that comes in because I don't know if I should bring it up about the fire department.
Well,
But we have agencies that the utilization, the underutilization indicators are questionable when we receive the information. And we have to delve into it and say, are you kidding? Like, is this really true? And how did you come to that number? But without having our own research or statistician or labor economist, those types of people, we can't really check the numbers and we can't really get that data together that we would need.
and that was part of our affirmative testimony, because the question was, why do you need these extra people? And therefore, why do you need the money? And we just, it was sort of plain facts, reducing it down to simple things so that everybody in the room could understand what we were talking about.
Right, and I still don't think it's as I was as intricate as I needed to be. However, that's the point, I'm a layperson, right?
Right.
So, unless I have, we don't have a director of research right now, and we're pretty much begging OMB to let us hire a new person, and they haven't approved it yet.
That was the
We have a
other
person on
question.
hold.
That was the other question that I think, Council Member Rosenthal asked, has your research person been approved yet? And I think your response was, we hope so. But there is a freeze on hiring.
Right, and so the
This
steps that we have to take can easily take a year to get the foundation in place so that we can have a valid, credible, sound report in February of 2021.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, what is the mandate requires us to respond by a given date.
Right, it's February, I think the same date as our
15th.
annual report.
Is there any way, obviously you can't do it now, but let's assume the worst, which is you can't hire, they don't approve your budget, can you get an extension on that mandate because you won't be able to meet it?
It would be an automatic extension because if they wanted, they would have to wait. I mean, we can only do what we can do. And,
Alright, I'm just,
I mean,
I guess the corollary is, if you want us to respond effectively to your requirement, this is what we need.
right, because the bill calls for the EPC to not only present the data, but to make recommendations to the city. So, we can put data together, but if we want to make recommendations and we wanna make sure that our recommendations can actually be implemented, what I think is we would have to do an interim survey once we test our hypotheses and come up, once we come up with hypotheses and say, this is what the data is telling us, and then we have to find out how the agencies have addressed issues in those areas that will come from the questions after we look at the data. And depending on what they say, that would create our recommendations, because what if we recommend something that they already do? Or what if whatever we're recommending is not feasible? So there has to be an interim survey somewhere in there where we can get information from the agencies as to what efforts were made regarding whatever hypotheses we come up with.
Okay.
So it can easily take a year
On top of
to
everything
get this
else we
thing
have to do.
together, right?
Wow.
So this is an additional task on top of all the other tasks that we have to do. In response to the controller's audit, we clearly have to continue to audit. We clearly, whether we want to, we normally have to do some education, some survey, some presentation to all the EO officers as we've been doing. And then on top of that, we have this additional mandate, legal mandate on us to undertake an analysis for the entire city annually.
Right, including non-mayoral agencies which we don't have data for,
Which
except for whatever data they give
DCAS
us.
does not have data for, therefore we don't
Right.
have access to data for, it's not that we independently.
The mayor's office of data analytics, doesn't have, it's actually the mayor's office of data analytics.
That would have the data, and
That
they-
would have to give us the data for the city.
So they do not have it for the district attorneys, for example.
I don't know,
What made you say this again?
District
because they're
attorneys.
non-mayoral,
They're non-mayoral,
but let's say
that was, it was just my assumption.
even agencies like that, let's say for instance the community boards, we may choose to aggregate the community boards in some way and look at the titles and aggregate those titles so that we can come up with sound, like credible data for them. That may make the most sense, but I don't know, without the research person, that these are just my theories of how we can look at stuff.
Okay.
I would think that that's what would happen, but
Back to the question of the research person, you have somebody that you want to hire and it has not been approved, will this person sit for a while and wait?
this person has been sitting for a while. I
Oh
hope
my goodness.
that
Hmm. How long has it been?
I think it's been 2 weeks. Has it been 2 weeks?
Oh.
It's been more than that?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
No,
my
since
question.
we made the offer.
Oh, I don't know.
Because we've been interviewing
Cause that's a risk,
for a while.
it's a risk of loss.
Yeah, we told them. The only thing is that, I mean, the person seems nice enough to say, okay, I understand. But,
Is the person within the city so that the person, no? Okay.
no.
And the person is not currently employed?
No, they're employed.
Oh, they're employed by someone else?
Yeah.
So they can stay in place, they're not without a job?
No.
Okay.
Makes a difference.
Hmm?
It does make a difference.
Yes,
Yeah, it does make a difference, that's why I asked the question.
yes. So we'll see.
Good luck. Is there anything we can do?
You know, I was thinking our strategy may be that when we ask for anything concerning local law 13, maybe we may want to copy Matthew Eugene, the author of the bill
Mm-hmm.
and the head of the Civil and Human Rights Committee. Say, see, look, we're asking for stuff here.
Fine, yeah, maybe.
So,
Would it help if the commissioners signed a letter to OMB?
I don't know. What do you think, Judith?
On one hand, the stature of the commissioners signing on a letter to OMB may have an impact. It may have the impact of saying, we have this new mandate, we are determined to fulfill it, and we need this. It may actually
Let's
have
do
a
it.
very good
It sounds
impact.
like
Maybe the
Yeah,
commissioners could sign a
like-
letter.
Like a simple, like that simple statement, not the detailed, this is what
Yeah,
we
no,
need,
no,
da
no,
da da.
no.
But in terms of, you know, as the
Our-
commission,
We are
Well,
asking for an
it's-
exception to the current freeze because of our particular need the need is created by X, and we would hope that you could help, you could accommodate us. That would be my simple letter.
It's up to the commission, and if you did send a letter, I would recommend that you copy the chair of, the Civil and Human Rights Committee. I will say that beyond asking to hire the position that we're trying to fill, which is a backfill, so it's a position we already have, beyond asking for additional staff, they're actually taking money from us this year and next year. As a part of the PEG mandate, that they're taking money from all city agencies, and they're taking money from us also. So we've been trying to figure out ways, we've asked for a waiver. So,
Your initial thought was not to do that?
I am a little bit uncomfortable at this moment sending it, not that I would be fine, and I will sign it if everybody
Mhm.
agrees to it, I'm not like hard on it.
Mhm.
I actually think like because of the mandate, it's city council that actually should push some of this stuff first, versus just sort of like, I think you've made your case to ORB. Certainly if you think it helps to have the commissioner sign the letter, I'm fine with it, but I actually think that this is a little bit different. I don't know if you can get over the across the board cuts, that's a different issue entirely.
well, we've had waivers in the past.
It does disproportionately affect a small agency
Mhm.
across the board cut it.
I think this time we're at a point where we do have money there because somebody has left.
Yeah.
So they look at that. We really actually try to use that money to have training across the board. We send our staff to Cornell. Cornell has excellent training. There's new laws that come out. We want our people to be trained. We want them to be trained above and beyond the agencies that we audit. So we're using the money to send staff to Cornell and for, other little things around the office, but we can only use a certain percentage of the PS money that's been left over. So a part of it is them saying, well, the money's here. And you don't really have to send people to training, that sort of thing. But another part of it is the fact that it will affect us because, one, we can't hire another person. We can't backfill the position that's vacant.
Can I divorce that? I mean, I think that the need for a research director, and you've got somebody waiting there, is while it's part of the whole mix, it really is the need, and for that, I think we should have a very simple letter asking for it. As to release from the PEG, that's far too complicated, I think politically. We're asking for relief from a freeze. I think that's one piece. I'm comfortable doing that. By mixing it up, I sound as though I'm the child you shouldn't penalize.
No, I don't think you should
treat
mix
me
it.
differently.
I'm
And I
just
think
telling.
and that bothers me.
Right.
I think we have, based on, it's a small agency, we have a real need for us to progress, for us to be able to deal with this new piece of legislation that the city council has passed, that the mayor has obviously approved because he didn't reject it, that mandates us undertaking a certain group of tasks that we're unable to do without having a research director. That's a simple request from my mind, and one I think the commissioners ought to join in. As to the other, I'm not suggesting the other needs aren't as important, Cherise. I'm just suggesting they're harder for us to get involved in and to justify.
I don't think you should get involved in it. This is the backstory.
Yeah, okay.
This is the backstory of what that impacts. We're asking for it at a time when this is happening.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just letting you know,
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because that makes a difference. You're cutting money, but they're cutting money, but we're saying, hey, but can you give us this person, can you give us this money? So it's, are they taking money or are they giving it to us? So that's the impact of it. I think there is room to ask in the next fiscal year. And, to be honest, there's an amount that they're asking to take from the next, they're trying to spread it over, the fiscal year, so I don't know, I don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, I know at this point they're taking money. So,
Okay, well, it is certainly my suggestion, I'm willing to sign it. If the commissioners are willing to sign it, someone needs to craft the simple letter and then get on with it, so.
so what I think I'll do is, by tomorrow, we'll check in again with them and see whether or not they approve the par that we have sitting there.
Okay,
And if they don't, then I'll let the commission know.
okay.
That's pretty much it.
All right. It's 10:21, I could leave early, the meeting is over.
Okay, so,
Anything else?
I
Any
don't-
new business?
no, I don't have any more business.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the commission,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Mhm.